So our compost is over here, and we've got a few different compost bins going at the moment. So this was our compost that we made about a month and a half ago or so. I believe we closed it off a few weeks ago. So what we've got in here is compost that is breaking down. In tropical climates, compost once you've made it, could potentially break down in about 3 to 4 weeks if you've added all the right amounts of carbon to nitrogen. The bigger your compost pile, the faster it'll break down because it heats up more quickly. Let me slow down. So the difference between this one here and this one here, I'll explain. So one is we're adding compost to it all the time. So we add all of our food scraps from the kitchen into this. Once you've added food scraps, which are really high in nitrogen, just like the compost toilets, you add scraps of, we've got sawdust, sometimes we gather leaves into that so that you've got a good carbon to nitrogen ratio. You'll notice if your compost stinks, that is because you've got too much nitrogen and it's breaking down anaerobically. Your compost should never ever stink, and you should never have maggots in it. Those are the two main things a lot of people complain about. They say, oh, I've tried to compost, but it really stank. I didn't want it next to the kitchen. If you've got the right ratios, your compost will never stink. So really it could just be in your kitchen. So that's one thing. And so if you notice your compost stinks, add more carbon to it. Carbon is anything that, you've got anything that's brown usually, except for manure. Manure is nitrogen. So anything like sawdust or paper or cardboard, shavings, anything like that is carbon. All your nitrogen is your green grass, so freshly cut grass, your food scraps, your manure, everything like that. Animals that are meat eaters, their manure will be much higher in nitrogen than vegetarian animals. Same with vegetarian yogis. They won't have as much nitrogen, so you don't need to add as much carbon to your compost. That was a joke. You guys are so serious.
I'm so interested.
You're so interested? So this compost here, so we kept adding to this compost. So we built it up for a month to 2 months, and every time we added more food scraps to it, we added carbon to it. And then what you want to do, you want to make sure that it gets enough air. So oxygen in there is critical, and the oxygen helps to break it down. And then slowly, after about a month or so, you'll have great material that you can use on your garden. So this one, as we added to it for about a month or two, and then it breaks down for a month. So that one will take a total of about 3 months. Here, which we've used most of it up already, there's a little bit left I can show you after. But this is what's called a hot compost. So the difference between a hot and a cold compost is a hot one is where you add everything at once and then you let it sit to break down. So we layer it, so you've got about 25 to 15 to 5 parts carbon, nitrogen, and manure. You mix that all together and you make about a cubic square or so that it heats up. And so once we've made it, it takes about an hour or so. We do it, the apprentices and I do it about every month. And then we've got just one big hot compost that should heat up to about 130 to 150 degrees Fahrenheit, which means that it'll kill all of the seeds in there. And it kills all the bacteria, anything bad for you. It breaks down to a really sweet smelling compost. And so if you take an hour or so to make that once a month, every month you'll have a huge pile of compost, which you can use on the garden. The benefit between one or the other, they're both the same. If you've got all the materials on hand that you can just make one big one and then use it in 3 weeks, why not? Because then you've got compost straight away that you can use. Any questions about compost?
So you don't have to flip it?
You can turn it. Yeah, this one, and that's a good question. You wait, so it will heat up within 24 hours to the point where literally if you stuck a metal pole in there and pulled it out, it would be smoking. It's that hot. So you wait until it's cooled down from that, so usually a couple days, and then you can turn it. You can turn it once after about a week or so, and then again, I would turn it once a week. Yeah. And then it should be good in about 3 weeks. And the slow compost, you're always turning and you're aerating it to make sure it gets enough oxygen in there.
When you said manure in that one, is that human manure or animal?
No, chicken manure. Yeah, we don't use human manure in our compost system. No, that takes a little more, yeah. So chicken manure is actually the highest in nitrogen. And then you've got pigs, and then usually horses and cow. Chicken manure is amazing on the garden because it's so high in nitrogen. You really only need a little bit of it and it'll work wonders, either in your compost or directly onto your soil. You got to be careful with it though, because it is so potent. If you put it onto baby plants or seeds, it can burn them. I've killed a whole plot that way accidentally. I thought chicken manure, my teacher said it's so great, and just put it everywhere, and the plants were actually black the next day. It burns them because it's so high in nitrogen. So you can water it down, just like we do with the comfrey. You can make a nutrient broth. So you could stick, say, you know, a bag of manure in a cheesecloth and stick it in water, and after a few weeks that would be amazing. You can water your plants with that. But again, do be careful. If it stinks a lot or if it's really dark colored, it's probably really, really rich, and you don't want to put it onto baby plants. So it'd be great for fruit trees or bigger plants. And so yeah, that was the compost that's breaking down, and this is the one that we're adding to now. So throughout this teacher training, everything that doesn't go to the chickens will go into this compost here, and then again we'll close it up, turn it every few weeks, and then we'll have compost. So I mean, having a few different bays of compost is great if you have the space. Otherwise, just having one compost system, you know, it's so important, because if you're just sticking it, 2/3 of what we stick in our garbage could be composted, and it's just breaking down anaerobically and just releasing gases which are just damaging the environment. So if nothing else, I mean, I worked for families in Australia and they didn't want to be bothered composting, so they have a lot of banana trees, and banana trees grow out like bamboo in a circle. So they'll send out little shoots like these little guys here. And so they eventually grow out to a really big circle. And so we would just chuck their compost inside the banana circle, which was great. It helped feed the banana trees. The bananas produced a lot more. They didn't have to see the compost. They didn't smell the compost, and it wasn't going in the garbage. So we all won. So we've built these compost bays so that they're slightly on an angle, so that all of the juice runoff that comes out of them will come into the tubes, and we'll catch it. I just used the juice yesterday to water the trees, so there's none in here at the moment, but that juice would run into here and it would make a really, really rich juice. So it's just a rich compost juice that you can then water down and use on your garden.